we've got actually a paradox over here with what a name is. A name is on one level very intrinsic to who we are, and yet it is also very external, because you don't really know me just by knowing my name. There are thousands of people that have that name, right? So what does that mean? So that's the analogy of the level of will, because a will, when you see someone's expression, right, of what they want, on the one hand, there are thousands of other people that want also, that are also desiring, right, that. But then there's also the will, which is intrinsic, which basically goes back to, why are you willing? Or is it a true will, right? Because is it an external will versus it's really what I want, right? And I think most people are operating from a level of external will. We're doing things just because we're supposed to do things, because we're told that we should do things. Get this job because you're expected to, and it doesn't take into account our deepest will, right? So we've got a level of our personality, which really, our personality, if you think about it, personality is not just our externality. Our personality is our will. You know a person based on their will. Now think about that. It's kind of deep. I mean, if you think about this, you can know a person by how much of a will they actually express, right? Whatever it is. You don't have to, not everyone is the same, and you don't have to like the thing that they will, right? But if we could appreciate that this is a person, a human being, right, that is expressing a conviction and a will and is true unto themselves, and therefore they are expressing something very which is very eternal. Essentially, it's more than just. So then, we appreciate that, and I think, like, all great people that lived in the world really had a will which is much more than just about themselves, but it had a lot more to do with a greater mission, right, for others, right? We're doing for a greater purpose, and a greater purpose comes because it's deeper inside of us, and if it's deeper inside of us, it's truer, and it resonates on the collective level, right? Because it's godly. It's Hashem, and Hashem is one. So that level of will is able to be a will that is much that is much more eternal, right, than just the external will. So why are we talking about this, and what does it have to do with really the idea of the 10 hidden sefirot? So there's a level of will, which is, again, that's the name, and that's, we could say, that connects me to who I am. But then beyond that, there are infinite sefirot, meaning that in our source, we're even beyond a will. We just are. We just are. And what are we? Infinite. It's Hashem. It's the infinity of Hashem. That's our nature, right? Our name, because the soul doesn't really have a name. I mean, it does have a name that it could be indicated as what it did in this world and in this lifetime, right? But beyond that, our soul is infinite, and it is nameless. Nameless in the way that in a good way, because you could have nameless, like right, there's that song, right, without a name, whatever it is. So we could be nameless, and that means that there's no identity, right? But the nameless here is like, really, God has names as well, and we're gonna be talking about that. The whole idea, the names of Hashem and what they are, but we have to understand, like, even what a name is, right? Because beyond a name, God doesn't even have a name, because God is infinite. And what do we call Hashem? We call God, which is Hashem, means the name, actually, because that's an expression of him. But really, he's called Ein Sof, which is infinite one, right? Called the infinite one, or Ein Sof, the infinite light. So within infinity, how many sfirot are there? Infinite. Infinite. There cannot be finite within infinite. It's a contradiction. So these 10 sfirot over here only exist after the arousal of the absolute will. So then we've got the level of light, and those are now the 10 sfirot. So the Zohar says, next week is actually the Ilula of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and Lag BaOmer. So the Zohar says, just as the flame of a candle spread to every side and direction, and when one seeks to know it, will only find a single flame. Because there is that source of the light. And the way this source actually is, we could say, for lack of a better word, dispensed, right? And that's a really not such a good, the way it is downchained, that, and again, there's called, in Hebrew, it's called Seder Hishtalshalut, the way this light now permeates within existence, okay? It starts off from basically this place of complete oneness, which is the essential will. And then it becomes, we could have the analogy of the coal, right? But then there's the light that's even beyond, right? It's in that source. But then it is found within the coal, we could say. But then the coal is this root for the flame. And the Ramak says, how can there be 10 hidden sfirot with the light of the Ein Sof? This contradicts the rule that he is completely uncomplex. That's not necessarily a word, but it says pashut, that God is not complex, means that there are no compartmentalized parts within him. There are no levels of evolution, spiritual evolution. There's just this infinity. So if we say, the Ramak asks, how can there be 10 hidden sfirot within the light? It contradicts contradicts that rule that God is basically uncomplexed and completely infinite. And the answer is that we need to understand what the 10 hidden sfirot are, because what are these flames, right? So the flames, we could say, is the revealed level of light, but then beyond, on a deeper level, there's the source of where the flames actually draw their power from, and we could call it the coals. But then beyond that, there is just the energy and the the power of fire, right? The element of fire. There's the element itself. So the element, where is it found? The element is found beyond the coal, right? It just becomes revealed within the coal. So the Ramak actually makes it a little bit more of a refined understanding of where it comes from. Because when we think about the analogy that the Zohar brings, so we've got the fire, we've got the coals, but then we've got the element, right? And it's a little bit abstract to think about then where's this actually sourced? So the element, like where is the element? Right? The element is not some place that we could say, oh, there's a fire element. So we could see it in lightning, we could see it in I mean, you don't really see it that much in creation, right? And that's why it is truly a godly creation, right? The creation of fire allows us to live in the whole expansion, and the industrial world that we live in really comes because of the element of fire that allows us to create and gives us ingenuity and inventions. So, but where is it sourced? Where does it actually come from? And so the Ramak gives the analogy of the flint. And we think about the flint, does the flint itself have fire? Right? No, but yes. So it's right, it's a it's a contradiction, because the the flint is the source. The friction of the flint allows for the fire to now be created, right? Yet you can't really indicate, and point to the actual rock and say, this rock has fire in it. It doesn't have fire in it. It has the potentiality for that element to now become expressed. How? Right? And that's just the way it works, right? It's just in its element. That is just the way the element becomes known and expressed.